Kyle, what are you drinking?
In honor of the fact that we're finally on Spotify now, Madam Producer, that is very impressive. I got a bottle of Eagle Rare I cracked, so I had to have
Wow.
decent to sip on. So
If you're going to drink like that, we need to do this thing. We need to do this live rather than virtual.
Well, I got to get back to Hartford. I always go bourbon hunting in every city I travel to. In most places around the country, bourbon is extremely hard to find good stuff. And I don't want to screw this up by saying this on a podcast, but Hartford, Connecticut has some great bourbon to be found, especially I found there's this liquor store in kind of a bad part of town in Hartford. There's this one really cruddy liquor store, and it's got bulletproof glass. But the last 2 times I've been there, I've gotten E.H. Taylor, Blanton's, Eagle Rare, so they have some good stuff. So I'll be back there.
I am drinking a Barbancourt rum. This is from Haiti. It's a Haitian rum. It's actually, the style is called Rum Agricole. This one's an 8-year-old, and they're really good. I mentioned this before, but there's different kind of styles of rum. What most people are familiar with in the U.S. is what I would call more Spanish style rums, like Cuban or Puerto Rican rum, like Bacardi, tend to be very clean, very smooth. And then there's British style rums, and all the way from Jamaica and Barbados, and they tend to be more molassesy, kind of heavier flavor. But this Haitian rum Agricole, it's weird. It's got some funk to it. It's just interesting and really pleasant.
You must be having a Haitian rum in reference to the Haitian comments at the debate, maybe.
There's a brilliance there that I don't actually have. I think this is an accidental wisdom that I whipped out a Haitian rum.
Well, the thing is, when I think of Springfield, Ohio, my recollection of Springfield, Ohio is a donut shop. I was stationed in Dayton, Ohio in the Air Force, and we had a guy in our unit that lived in Springfield, and periodically he would go to Schuler's Donuts in downtown Springfield, and I've never seen so much frosting on a donut before. So I don't know if that's still a thing in Springfield, but that's my loving memories of Springfield.
I went on a fraternity road trip to another chapter, the Wittenberg University chapter in Springfield, Ohio. And on that trip, we just kind of left East Lansing, and I lost my glasses at a gas station. And this is before I had, a bunch of surgeries on my eye. I couldn't see anything. I spent the whole weekend, like everything in a fog. So that was interesting.
Yeah.
Good times. I listened to our last week conversation in the car the other day. Not going to lie, it held up pretty good to scrutiny. I think that we approached it with what do the candidates need to do. And I think that our assessment of what might happen was probably pretty accurate.
Yeah. I left the debate frustrated in the sense that I feel like the openings she has from a policy standpoint, I feel like a good freshman in high school on the debate club could exploit wide chasms of challenges. And it just was frustrating that he took the debate of, I think she did a good job of getting under his skin. I think, I don't think the moderators were particularly objective, but if he thought David Muir was in the Republican Party, I think he probably, underestimated him significantly. I mean, obviously he knew what he was walking into, and
or should have,
and he got angry and came off bitter. And it's like, I laugh because some of the people talk about the debate and they're like, see, her policies are so much better. And it's like, I don't think that's why she won. I think she won because she kept it together, and she did what, not that anybody was listening to our podcast, but she did exactly what we said she had to do. Right.
Yeah, I think so. when we spoke last week, you wanted a clearer articulation from her about what her policies are. And I think even in then I said, well, I guess I understand why you'd want her to lay it out, but if he's drowning himself, give him rope. Why would you interrupt that? Interesting your description of that frustration, because in some ways that's what I felt like during the first debate with Biden.
Yeah.
I mean, Trump is what he is, and not so much whether you like the policies or not. He has a pretty loose relationship. I mean, he is not an ideologue about anything. And there's a couple of things that he's a little bit all over the map on. And I felt in that first debate, if Biden had been, roughly awake, like there was a lot of mileage to be made there, and there was just zero of that happening. He was just as random and off topic in that debate as Trump was in this one. And so I felt that same frustration. I did think, it again, whether they're disqualifying, there are clearly a handful of places where she's had big changes in her policy approach. There's definitely some wide open areas there for attack. And ultimately, his closing was like, well, they've had 3.5 years to do it. Why didn't they? That probably would have been my first answer.
It's funny you say that. I was thinking the same thing. I was like, okay, that's a good pitch he's got. That should have been the opening statement, not the final statement. Yeah. He should have led with that and hammered that throughout the thing. I thought her closing statement was awesome. I don't major policy differential here, but I like her keeping it, kind of reaching across the aisle. And that's what she needed to do because, the hardcore Trump people, myself probably included, are not going to probably vote for her because of that. But I have other reasons why I don't want to vote for her. Not because I don't think she's a nice lady. I mean, she sounds nice and genuine. But there's a lot of people, and back to our conversation, like, is anybody really undecided? But there's a lot of people that would be really motivated to go vote against her and might not because, doesn't sound all bad. And that kind of level of apathy, she just needs to create a little bit of apathy with a few voters and she could change things.
I felt like, to that point, there were a couple of things you said that I wanted to respond to, but I think maybe the most effective thing she did was by baiting him and getting him to rail. He's like, she's a Marxist and she's destroying this country. And her demeanor and her words, look, I freely acknowledge that the depth of the agenda is not great, right? Like, it's not like there's some master plan here, but you couldn't see that woman conduct that debate and say, like he has said before, oh, she's an idiot. She doesn't know anything. There's no way she could be, she's not ready for prime time. I mean, you might disagree with her, but you can't say that she's not qualified to be on the stage after that. And if that was what had somebody worked up, like, we have this woman who doesn't know anything, like, I got to stop that. I think you'd be a little apathetic about that now.
And honestly, if your goal is to show, she doesn't know what she's talking about, and okay, that's a valid criticism. But when you say, oh, she's an idiot, well, now you're just like arming all the people against her. You see this a lot. I see this in business and other places. If somebody thinks you're an idiot, nobody ever tells you you're an idiot. They say, I think you're great. You're right. A really nice lady and appreciate all the work you're doing. But, like, there's a different way to finesse that, but he's a bull in the china shop. And that's a little bit why people love him, but it's also why people like myself would like to shake him and be like, dude, this was unnecessary. This was like a home run potential that a little like my Dallas Cowboys who just lost to the Saints by 25 points, Okay.
I wonder, there were a couple of things that I thought about with this. And again, not this to make this all Trump critique. Again, I freely admit there's wide open lanes of critique of what she's saying. There's a lot of platitudes thrown around. I thought it was interesting. They fact checked her. The moderators did not.
Yeah, I was going to say, you don't mean the moderators. That didn't happen, but yeah.
No, but what I heard people saying, well, she lies, she told a falsehood. She said that Project 2025 is Trump's plan, and he said he doesn't believe it. Like, well, that's not quite lying. That's like you're getting tarred with the brush. That's, it was his people that wrote it, or people that were in his White House that wrote it. So, what I wanted to go to and get your reaction to is, I think the most striking thing, other than the subtle jab of drinking Haitian rum, I did not launch the first "they're eating the dogs" salvo in this. But I guess, does the negativity about America, does that wear you out? If everything was sweetness and light, we wouldn't need to change and we wouldn't need to be looking at somebody else. And I get that. But I don't know, like inflation's been high, but unemployment's pretty low. Like objectively, it's not like the country is it's not 1931. And yet he comes out with that message that just the country is just a disaster. I feel like that loses more people than it motivates. There's some people that's just like, yeah, it sure is. I don't know. Like the policies that get around it aside, I find that really off-putting for me. I'm just interested in your thoughts on that.
The theme to me is more, we got the greatest country in the world, and we got a bunch of people that are doing their best and doing great, and they're doing great despite these challenges. And let me tell you what these challenges are. 4 years ago, your dollar was worth, X amount more than your dollar is worth today. Everybody's still great, and they're doing it as best they can, and they're making it work. But how much better could we do? And that's a message of positivity versus like, yeah, everything's gone to hell in a handbasket. You're screwed. Well, like you said, nobody's going to leave that speech feeling good. They're going to leave that speech, drinking or something. I don't know. I agree with you. I tell you, I don't want to wear you out, but I have been thinking about this all week. Like, okay, if I were in his shoes, what would I have said differently? And I wish he'd just come out and say, hey, I know a lot of people don't like me. I get it. I say stuff, it pisses people off. I get it. But the way I would explain it, if I were him, I would just say, I am passionate about this country. I'm passionate about helping this country. Hey, I was president. I don't take a salary. I didn't take a salary. I'm not going to take a salary. My net worth went down when I was in office. Like, I'm not doing this for my health. I'm doing it because I care. I get upset because I want what's best for us. I feel like that's what his people think, but he never really articulates it. And I feel like if he'd articulate something like that, like all these fact checks and barbs, like from the moderators, you could just roll off that stuff if you had it aligned with like an explanation. But in the absence of that explanation, the guy's just mad. People come up with a million other reasons. And I feel like there was so much to talk about: the economy, the border, national security. I mean, my message would have been the specific actions we took under our administration worked. The stuff they dismantled that we did caused this mess that we're in. And you can easily articulate that. But it's like, I find myself with him desiring this communicator, and I don't think he's capable of.
You mentioned Ronald Reagan in our last meeting, and I think that, and of course, I was as big a fan of Ronald Reagan as they got, and there were a lot of implicit negativity in Reagan's speech, right? Like there was always this threat of the Cold War, and like,
but we're going to make it.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. The overt is that America's great. There is an implicit threat that if we don't keep it that way. And Trump kind of does the opposite. The threat is overt. The promise and the hope and all of that is, you could say, is implicit. I guess what I was going to ask, and I don't mean this to sound like I'm trying to pen you in, but is it a communication problem? Or I don't know that he believes it the way that you said it, much less communicates it. I think he's transactional in how it works for him. And I don't think that I think he'd rather have the country doing well than not. I don't mean that he wants ill for people. I don't know that Ronald Reagan really believed that this country was exceptional and incredible and could be amazing things. I don't know if he believes that.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think he believes that. I think he believes though that for our success to happen, there are things that need to take place, you know. And again, it's like, you know, it's kind of this whole thing like, well, what is he after? If he's not what he's after, what he says, I mean, is he, you know, people say, oh, he's in this to make a ton of money. Really? I mean, his net worth has probably gone down in half and he's got 100 indictments against him. I didn't see that he's really getting much out of this. You think about the motives, it's like, well, I mean, you know, if he thinks this is somehow going to increase his stock and everything else, I don't know. I think he's giving up a lot more than he's getting out of this situation.
I think I think that was probably true in 2016 and maybe 2020, but now, I mean, I don't know. It's a fool's errand to try to get inside his head and to guess. You know, being able to appoint the attorney general and make a lot of his legal problems go away would be a powerful motivator, I think.
Yeah, but I mean, none of these legal problems would be there if he wasn't running for president. I mean, if he wasn't in the place he's in today, I mean, all these are related in some sense to his political life. I mean, if he's running the Trump organization, none of this stuff would be an issue.
That's probably more than we've got time to go down. I think that's really interesting. The other thing I wanted to say that I thought was interesting, I think Kamala Harris proved herself to be an intelligent woman and capable of standing on the big stage, or, you know, whatever the low bar was there for her to get over. I think she's there. What struck me, though, is both how easy it was to get him to Eaton Pets, but I don't think she's all that great. And what I wonder is, why has nobody else been able to do this? Did they not try? Or why didn't Rubio come swinging the same way? Did he just not have it? I'm not buying that Kamala Harris is a rhetorical powerhouse in a way that
look
Cruz is not.
Look how she did in the Democrat debate. I mean, there was really no traction. You're right. He beat out all these folks, and yet he's struggling with her. Why is that?
What are the elements of that? Because again, I think she did a good job, but you kind of get the feeling that anybody who'd have just said, you know, your crowds don't stick around, he'd have just, you know, was it her? Or if it was just that's the way he is, like, why didn't somebody go there before? Is that we've been too noble to not swing that low? You know, they were cheap shots, but like,
well, I mean,
he's taking it. You're not going to give up on that if it's working.
Yeah, that is a really good question, because he's taking his share of cheap shots from the Republican candidates, from Joe. I mean, from all these other folks. It's like, why did she get so under his skin? I wonder if part of it too is, did you not prepare? I mean, did you think, you know, because she does sound, I get she's an intelligent woman, but in many of the interviews that she's done, she doesn't come off polished and professional. And maybe he thought, oh, she's going to come off that way. But it's like, you got to be ready.
I heard somebody say, and I don't know if it's true or not, I don't know if this person was in a position to know this, but they said that, you know, friend of a friend had said, getting ready for debating Hillary Clinton. Well, he didn't like her. He wanted to put her in jail, but he thought she was smart. You know what I mean? Like, she's been Secretary of State. She's done, I'm not a huge Hillary fan, but you can't say that she's not capable. And they said that he had voiced in the debate prep that he, I got to bring my A game because Hillary Clinton, she's smart. And, did he just think, yeah, Harris is a lightweight. She doesn't have much of a policy thing.
But again, why wouldn't she exploit that and go down those rabbit holes and really dig into it? And I don't know how much the moderators were, my favorite moderator line actually was, I forget the exact question, but it was something like, Vice President Harris, former President Trump said this, blah, 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 and he was incorrect. And, your campaign condemned him. Do you agree with your campaign and condemning? Like, let me throw up this beach ball for you to knock out of the park, But again, he should have known that. And I think there was ample opportunities for him to give it back to the moderators more than he did.
Totally.
He could have controlled the moderators a lot more by arguing and giving it back to them. There were several things that they went back and forth on. He probably could have hammered home harder than he did. But
I would say that the stuff that where the moderators really seemed to bother him was candidly on the stuff that was trivial. I mean, they like if he'd have stuck to message, there's nothing to fact check.
right.
Like you were against fracking then and you're not now. Explain that to me. Right? There's no
Right.
fact checking of that.
Yeah.
It's when he gets to the off script stuff that he was just like so so the pets thing.
And again, how many other anecdotal examples, totally rock solid, you could throw out there about immigration? I wouldn't have gone down the path of some anecdote that made no sense. I'd have been talking about the numbers, the raw numbers. I mean, Springfield, Ohio, great example. It's a town of like 30,000 people, and they got like 20,000 immigrants there. I mean,
Yeah.
that would be the thing to focus on. But even if the pet thing happened, it's like, don't go down to the.
It's interesting to me because I will admit that I'm resistant to worrying about the border. I have a high regard for your opinion, and to the degree that you've said it's a big deal, that means more to me than other people bitching about it. But I have to tell you, Trump's personification and personal demonization of immigrants is so repugnant to me. And look, I know I'm being played. This is a strategy, but my reaction is not like, oh yeah, we should really clamp down on the border. My reaction is, you know what? Who cares if there's 20 million of them here? Because by and large, my experience with immigrants is that they're better people than a lot of the couch sitters that were born here. And so literally the ad hominem attack on immigrants is so repellent to me that honestly, it makes me non-critical of issues that are probably much a bigger deal on the border. There's no way in hell I want to even acknowledge that because I don't want anything that even gives any oxygen to this guy. They're coming in, they're murderers and they're rapists. Yeah, well, they're also my mother-in-law. They're also the woman who worked for me at Fresno State, who was an illegal immigrant. This woman said, yeah, I remember my mom holding my hand and we ran across the border. She's one of the hardest working people I knew. And I always think about this. I'm going to not soapbox on this, but I'm going to tell you, it doesn't make any sense to me to somebody that claimed to be Mr. America First, greatest country in the world. If you think that America is what people seem to claim it is, and you're living on a border on the other side and you care about your family, if you're not trying to figure a way to get into this country, legal or illegal, then you're a bum. If my family was in Central America, I would be working every angle I possibly could to get here. And I respect that in people. And so again, I don't mean to soapbox this, but
No, and I think that's a good point. That's, again, part of the frustration with the messaging. I mean, number one, first and foremost, everybody came here through immigration.
Right.
I go on a business trip internationally and I come back and they ask why I was traveling and why I'm coming back, and I'm a citizen. I think there is a legitimate security concern when you let millions of people across the border. Like you said, most of these people are coming because who wouldn't want to come?
Because we're the greatest country in the world. We already
are
said
the greatest country in the world, and it makes sense that they want to come here. It's just we need to protect our citizens. We need, and there is examples of violent crime of people that have come across the border. Obviously, there's a lot of examples of hardworking people, and there's heart-wrenching stories. But I think the other thing that gets lost in the immigration discussion, and kind of back to your point about whether it's your mother-in-law or whether it's people like you said about wanting to the best for what their family is and bring them in the right way. Anybody that's come here legally, and I've known a lot of people that have come here legally, it is a mammoth effort of red tape and bureaucracy. And I think just out of principle, I think it's kind of crappy to let somebody just run across the border on the southern border. Meanwhile, if you came here legally and you try to do all this stuff, it's a complete beating. And then I think the other issue is if you send the message that, hey, if you make it across the border, we'll figure it out, I think you're giving a lot of license to a lot of bad people, not necessarily people coming across the border, but some of these people that are trucking and smuggling people across the border. You're creating this entire economy of human trafficking. And I think a lot of that is bad. And there's people coming and dying on trains. I mean, it's like, we should all recognize,
for what it's worth, I
gotta-
completely agree with you. And I think that those are really compelling points about this. And
But it gets lost when it's like, well, rapists and murderers are coming. Well,
right.
yes,
Like, and
there's a lot
again,
of
I mean, I know myself, and I know if your lead foot is, these people that, there is, at a minimum, there is a racial undertone to the rhetoric that he chooses, and it is polarizing, and it is designed to be polarizing, and it's designed to be offensive, and it's designed to fearmonger. And I'm just like, wow, the first casualty in that are the things that you just talked about that are really legitimate concerns.
Well, and again, I probably give him more rope than obviously you would. But it's kind of back to that conversation around, is this some grand conspiracy to demonize people? Or again, he is not capable of getting probably a couple of main points across and then just hammering the main points over and over again. And I think in his estimation, for whatever reason, he's not somebody that can lay out a complex reason for why he's against illegal immigration. And so he hammers home the bad part. But I've seen him on podcasts. I've seen him on interviews where he goes into detail about, no, most of the people coming are coming because they're good people and they want to work, but there's also bad people coming. But if he's given 20 seconds, he goes with murderers and rapists. And I get your point in that, okay, if you're going to go with 20 seconds, that's probably not maybe those aren't the highlights to bring up, but I get both sides.
Well, then the other side of that is he's also an opportunist and a pragmatist, and that may be the 20 seconds that he chooses because that's the 20-second that works with at least part of the demographic that he's trying to reach. And I think that's a whole other problem. I wish people would find that kind of rhetoric offensive and not, I'm taking a position rather than analyzing, and I'm not doing a good job of it.
And I tell you, I don't think anybody's going to listen to this, but I love talking to you about this because it's funny to hear you say that because, well, he's a pragmatist and that's a bad thing. But isn't that like he's trying to be efficient? I mean, that's okay. I'm going to lay out the message that's most efficient. Your beef isn't that his efficiency. Your beef is that the demographic that he's talking to, it clicks.
Right. That's exactly my point. And I would say that I think there's a lot of Democrats in this country that think that Trump is the enemy. And I don't think that. I don't think he's that significant. Look, he's either going to win this election and then he's going to be gone off of the world stage in 4 or 6 years, depending on what sort of a riot he can scare up at the end, or he's going to lose and he's going to be done, right? Like his days are numbered one way or the other. That number's probably bigger than I want it to be. But what's going to be left behind is a bunch of people for whom my black neighbors are eating my dog that's a decision-making statement. Right. If that's the message that's clicking with people and keeping his people on voting
so
for him.
You think it's a racial thing?
I think that there's a racial element. I think it's othering maybe is the more appropriate term, right? They look different. They've got a different language. They're from somewhere else. They're not. Yeah. I don't think, for what it's worth, like, again, I feel like nobody's going to fact check me. I don't think Trump's a racist. I think he's an equal opportunity disrespecter.
Yeah.
I really do. I don't think that he's a racist, but I think he's overly simplistic about things. Like, I don't know. I guess I'm rambling here about a characterization. I don't think he's got it in for any one race. I think he just disrespects people broadly. And if those people happen to share characteristics that are convenient for him. Again, I think he's a pragmatist. I don't think he's got I don't think there's a grand plan to. In fact, that's one of the most comforting things about this. And when I listen to liberal media and we do the threat to democracy thing, this guy is not Mussolini, because I don't think he has that kind of well-hatched
And again,
perspective.
I get back to what's the motivation. And I don't know. I don't think the guy's perfect, but I don't think he's nearly the evil monster that people
Right.
make him out to be. And I don't think he appeals to a broad group of people. And I get that, the Democrats try to frame anybody in the MAGA movement as a white guy and a white young guy.
I don't think that's the way it's played out.
And I don't think that's necessarily true.
Agree.
I really am interested in what happens next for that movement because, to your point, he's 78 years old. He may win now, but I mean, he's almost 80 years old. He's not going to be alive much longer. I mean, I don't mean that negatively. I mean, just in general, I mean, the guy's not, he's not going to live he's going to live longer than any human.
This is totally irrelevant. You want to get freaked out? You're 3 years younger than I am, so I know how old you are. Go back in history and look at, I'm not making a Hitler comparison, but look at some of these dictators, Hitler and Stalin. How old was Hitler in 1932? You know what I mean? Like the ship has sailed. All the famous people who did huge, gigantic things, they were already done by the time they were my age. Like the clock has run out on me. John F. Kennedy was like 47 when he was killed, right?
Yeah. So you don't think Donald Trump's Hitler? So we got that. I mean, I got that concession out of you.
I will. Yeah, I will back that up.
Okay, that's good. That's good. I feel like I've accomplished something in this podcast. That's great. Am I going to get you to vote for him? No, but he's not.
No, we're not.
Hitler, so
but we're now in the zone between Hitler and voting for him.
We're making progress. Well, it's going to be interesting to watch. I know we got a lot to cover between now and then to see what happens between now and the election. There's not going to be another debate. It doesn't sound like.
Yeah.
I think I'm supportive of that.
Let's stay in touch. Let's watch how things unfold over the next week or so.
Well, and I know we've been talking a lot about the candidates and such. Hopefully, love to get onto some topics here. I know you're comfortable with the broad generalizations, as your candidate is, but if we could get into some specifics, that would be fun too.
Yeah. I'm wide open to that. And again,
that's awesome.
Then I'm going to have to be shooting from the hip because I don't have policy positions from my candidate of choice to run on. I'm going to have to just.
She might post something between now and then, Kent. Come on.
Watch this space for more detail about my plan for the free world.
I want to reiterate, though, I really enjoy this. I mean, I could do this with you all day. I know our madam producer is begging for brevity, but I love this. I love you to death, and I enjoy the dialogue. I love hearing your thoughts and comparing and contrasting things.
Well, same here. And I have to say, it's partly my antidote to the echo chamber. I got to say, the immigration is a really good example for me because, for reasons that I identified, like they're evil people part enrages me so much that literally I forget that there is I don't forget, like I know this, but you laid out just a second ago, like legitimate reasons why reform to how we do immigration is important. And it's painful to me that that's not in my feed. And I'm grateful to have you in that regard. And I think maybe that's the ultimate proof of concept of what we're trying to do here, that we love each other, we care about each other. I mean, in some ways, politics is like football. We should just be talking about the football game because honestly, it doesn't matter who's running the show. It ain't going to change that much.
Yeah.
But there's good money in keeping us pissed at each other. And I like being able to push back from that table a little bit.
Amen.
Well, let's keep it rolling.
Sounds good, Kent. Thank you, Madam Producer. Here's a toast to Madam Producer. Great job.
Here.